Hello and welcome back to RPG PhD. I'm Dr. Ben and this is part 3 of our ongoing series on the rules of Warhammer the Old World roleplay. In our last two videos we covered how the resolution system works, dice pools, tests, and dramatic outcomes, and character creation. So if you missed those, I'll link them in the description below. Today we're diving into combat, how it begins, how it flows, and how zones and ranges shape the battlefield. Whether you're defending a shrine, ambushing a chaos warband, or dueling in the rainy streets of a small town, combat in the old world is dangerous, cinematic, and built for tactical storytelling. So let's start with how battles begin. Nowhere in the old world is truly safe. Even if you're not looking for a fight, sinister forces are already looking for you. And when violence erupts, you'll have no choice but to stand your ground. Combat begins the moment someone draws a weapon, casts a hostile spell, or otherwise signals violent intent. At that point, we shift from the free-form flow of storytelling into the structured rhythm of battle, with rounds, turns, and actions. A round represents a brief moment of action, and in each round, every character gets one turn. On their turn, a character can take one primary action, like attacking, plus any number of incidental actions, such as moving into an adjacent zone, or shouting a warning. To determine turn order, you first split the combatants into two broad sides: the player characters and their allies, and everyone else, enemies, neutrals, or indifferent factions. By default, the player's side goes first. The players choose among themselves which characters act in which order, and that order can change every round. Once they've all acted, the Game Master resolves the enemy turns in any order they choose. But if the characters are ambushed, caught completely off guard, this order is reversed. The enemies act first, and the player characters go second for all rounds thereafter. Even worse, in that first surprise round, ambushed characters cannot oppose attacks, making for a brutal opening. A merciful Game Master might allow one character to make an awareness test to sense the ambush. If successful, they can alert the others just in time. Better yet, characters with the appropriate environment lore might automatically anticipate the threat, because it's hard to surprise a seasoned woodsman in his own forest. Zones are abstract spaces that divide the battlefield. They're shaped by natural or architectural features: walls, roads, rooms, riverbanks, rooftops, and elevation changes. Indoors, each room is usually its own zone. Outdoors, zones are broader, often around 10 yards in diameter. If you have naval or aerial combat, expect very large zones, even spanning leagues. Zones are fast and intuitive, perfect for tracking blast radius, movement, or line of sight. But position within a zone still matters. Obstacles may grant cover, concealment, or block line of sight, even within the same zone. Positioning your allies to surround an enemy can prevent them from fleeing. Conversely, forming a tight formation might shield a fragile caster from melee threats. The Game Master has final say over what's possible within each zone. Use common sense and descriptive play. Distance between characters isn't tracked in feet or meters, it's measured in how many zones apart they are. Here are the 5 standard range bands. Close range. This is within arm's reach, typically in the same zone. Close range is required to attack with most melee weapons, treat a wounded comrade, or loot their corpse. To touch something, you usually have to be in the same zone, unless you and the target are at the very edge of adjacent zones. Short range. In the same zone, short range is applicable if you're on opposite sides of a room from someone or marching in the same regimental formation. Moving to something at short range is usually trivial, unless you're blocked from moving entirely. Medium range, that's one zone away. At medium range, you need to raise your voice to be heard. It's the distance between the stage and the audience, between a noble's dinner hall and their servants in the next room. Medium range is as far as most creatures can move in one battle turn unless they sacrifice their action to perform a maneuver. Long range, that's 2 zones away. Communication at long range means shouting. Passing an object requires a powerful throw. Moving up to long range in one turn requires the maneuver action unless you're a fast creature, like a horse. And then extreme range is 3+ zones away. At extreme range, your target might still be visible, but too far away to usefully interact with. A character who focuses entirely on movement on their turn can move up to 3 zones or even further at fast speed. Most range effects aren't used at extreme range, as characters are more likely to be engaging with targets close enough to look them in the eye. In the old world, combat isn't just about who hits hardest, it's also about where you are, how fast you can move, and how you use the battlefield to your advantage. So let's start with speed. Every creature in the game has a speed rating. This determines how far they can move during their turn and how quickly they can respond to threats. There are 3 categories. Slow, they can only move to a location within medium range each turn. They cannot use the maneuver action to run, charge, move quietly, or move carefully. Few human-sized creatures are slow, but undead minions or cumbersome vehicles might be. Normal. This is the default for most player characters. Normal creatures can move to a location within medium range each turn and may choose to move extra zones with the maneuver action. And fast. These creatures can reach a location within long range each turn and also use maneuvers for bonus movement. This includes cavalry, flying creatures, and monstrosities. But speed is only part of the equation. Various conditions can restrict your movement. If you're burdened, you can't take maneuvers at all. If you're prone, you can't leave your current zone. And if you're defenseless, you can't move at all. Outside of battle, speed still matters, especially in chase scenes. A faster creature will eventually outrun a slower one. If they're close or equally matched, the Game Master may call for opposed athletics tests to determine who escapes or who catches up. Zones aren't empty circles. The battlefield is full of clutter, obstacles, terrain, and tactical opportunities, what we call battlefield features. So let's break a few of these down. Cover and concealment. If arrows are flying, find something to hide behind. If your character is partially or fully obscured by objects, foliage, smoke, or darkness, attackers suffer -1d on their shooting attack tests. You can also combine cover with moving quietly to disappear from sight, especially if you're maneuvering behind walls or ducking into fog. In cases where cover is marginal, say a low stone wall, you might need to go prone to gain protection. And don't forget, in darkness, you can't see anything at long or extreme range. Trying to attack someone you can't see, you count as blinded, and that makes your test grim. Difficult terrain. Zone features that obstruct movement, muddy ground, thick foliage, or debris are referred to as difficult terrain. If you move through difficult terrain on your turn, make an athletics test. If you fail, you fall prone immediately after crossing the difficult terrain. The move carefully maneuver and certain environmental laws allow you to bypass this test. On a turn when you test to move through difficult terrain, you cannot also test athletics to move an extra zone when you run or charge, because the obstruction prevents you from reaching your top speed. Some zones feature dangerous hazards. They may be lined with traps or impose a steep fall or contain a roaring fire. Serious weather conditions like extreme heat or cold might dictate the entire region counts as a hazard. If you're exposed to a hazard, you must test to avoid suffering its effects. If you fail, you suffer a wound and or a relevant condition determined by the Game Master. Especially dangerous hazards have a rating. To avoid these hazards, you must score successes on your test equal to the hazard's rating. If you fail, you suffer a wound, rolling dice on the wounds table equal to the difference between the hazard rating and your number of successes, plus extra dice for untreated wounds as normal. Here's some examples. So we may have falling damage. Jumping from a moving cart, we might test athletics. We might have to do it once, and we might take a wound or be knocked prone. If we're in a burning building, we may have to test endurance every turn. That's going to need 2 successes for that, and we might gain a wound or the ablaze condition. Some travel hazards, like an exhausting day's march, we may have to roll survival per day, or we gained the drained condition. And since the wounds table assumes the character is suffering an injury from a physical blow, some results might be unsuitable for wounds inflicted by fumes, poisons, or climate conditions. So the Game Master may choose another nearby result on the wounds table instead, or even create their own wound specific to the hazard. Every round, every character gets one combat action, and may take a second by spending fate or using a talent. But even with 2 actions, you can't perform the same action more than once, unless you're improvising in 2 different ways. In addition, you can take a handful of incidental or free actions. These don't require rolls, and they include move to a location within medium range, 1 zone away. Fast creatures can move to a location within long range, 2 zones away. You can make this free move only once per turn, and instead of moving, you can remove the prone condition from yourself or an ally in close range. You can draw a weapon, catch a tossed item, or swap what items you're holding. You can knock an arrow in your bow, or prepare any missile weapon that doesn't require a test to reload. You can drop prone. You can shout a warning to an ally or a threat at an enemy. You can pick up, consume, or interact with a simple object in close range, like opening a door or pulling a lever. Use the recover action to do this while in close range of an enemy. And incidental actions don't usually require a test to achieve, but there are some exceptions. Testing athletics to move through difficult terrain. And common sense determines how many incidental actions you can perform on your turn, but the Game Master is the final arbiter. Some options may be allowed outside your turn, like spitting curses at a heretical enemy. If you've got the drop on an enemy, you can take a turn of setup actions before they're even aware of you. Aiming your bow, helping to set a trap, maneuvering into striking range, those sorts of things. Here are the 6 core combat actions. Aim. Make an awareness test to target a ranged weapon at an enemy. Each success gives you +1d on your next ranged attack against that target, as long as you don't take any other actions in between. Aiming also lets you hit targets at extreme range if conditions allow. Attack. Make an attack test to injure your enemy with a suitable pairing of skill and weapon. If your target is aware of you, they oppose with athletics or another appropriate skill. If your attack test succeeds, your target is staggered or wounded. Make an attack test with the appropriate skill. Melee for close weapons, shooting for ranged weapons, throwing for thrown weapons, or brawn for unarmed strikes. Help. Use any relevant skill to assist an ally's upcoming action. For every success you score, they get +1d on their test. You might spot a weak point, shield them from a blow, boost morale with a rousing shout. And rather than everyone attacking separately, coordinated helps with one big dice pool is often the smarter way to take down a powerful foe. Improvise. This is where creativity shines. Use a skill, spell, or ability the way you would outside combat. Often this will allow you to apply a condition, such as use brawn opposed by endurance to knock someone prone. Use leadership to admonish an attacker and inflict the distracted condition. Use charm to talk a guard out of fighting. You can even try to disarm, convert, or demoralize enemies. Just know the Game Master will decide what works and when. Only reducing a foe to defenseless, defeating them, or forcing a retreat truly ends their threat. Maneuver. This action focuses on movement. Choose one of the following. You can run, move an extra zone, test athletics to move a second extra zone. Fail and you become staggered. Charge. Move into close range and make a melee attack. If successful, you gain +1d. You can charge from up to medium range or attempt a long-range charge with an athletics test. But if you fail, you stop short, can't attack, and become staggered. You cannot charge if you begin your turn in close range of an enemy. Move quietly. Make a stealth test opposed by enemy awareness. If you succeed and have concealment, you vanish. Your next attack is unopposed. Move carefully. Ignore difficult terrain. You can also test awareness to spot hidden threats or opportunities. Recover. After a moment to regather your wits, you gain each of the following benefits. Remove the staggered condition from yourself or an ally in close range. Remove the prone condition from yourself or an ally in close range. If you are not prone, you can mount your steed instead if it is within close range. You can treat a wound or test to remove another condition from yourself or an ally in close range. Remove one die from your miscast pool. Grab or interact with a dropped weapon, healing potion, or other object, even if an enemy is within close range. At the end of a battle, when you have a chance to catch your breath, the survivors automatically recover. They are no longer staggered or prone and succeed on all tests to treat a wound or recover from a condition. Attack tests aim to incapacitate or kill an enemy target. The attacker uses a skill appropriate to their weapon: melee for melee weapons, shooting for ranged weapons, throwing for thrown weapons, brawn for unarmed attacks. Most attacks are opposed tests. The defender resists with athletics or defense if they are suitably armed. If the attacker gains at least as many successes as the defender, the attack succeeds. If the defender gains more successes than the attack fails. An unaware or defenseless target may not oppose incoming attack tests, meaning even one success is enough for an attack to hit. Attacking an unaware target draws attention to your presence. You must move carefully to a new hiding spot to make attack unopposed again. Many weapons provide bonuses on attack or defense tests, and wounds, help, talents, or other abilities may apply modifiers as well. In addition, the following modifiers apply to melee and brawn attacks. Plus 1d on attacks made during a charge. Plus 1d if you outnumber your foe in your zone. To calculate this, you add together all the allies in your zone, including yourself, and add together all the enemies in your zone, including your target. If there are more of the former than the latter, you get the bonus. Mounted enemies count as one fighter. Defenseless or defeated fighters or non-combatants don't count at all. You get plus 1d if you're attacking from higher ground. This applies if you are fighting atop elevated terrain or the target is prone. Being a bigger creature or mounted on a steed or vehicle does not provide the bonus by default. The following modifiers also apply to shooting and throwing attacks. Minus 1d if you are attacking a target who is not in your weapon's optimum range. Minus 1d if your target is obscured by cover or concealment. Minus 1d if your target is prone. Game masters may withhold these modifiers where they seem inappropriate. For example, withholding the outnumbering bonus if you only outnumber 7 to 6. So, for example, Soretta barrels down the crumbling chapel steps, hammer raised high, as a Chaos Marauder charges to meet her. With a roar, she swings to smash through his guard before he can strike. She makes a melee attack test. Her weapon skill is 4 and her melee is 5. Because she's attacking as part of a charge, she gains plus 1d. That gives her 5 dice total. She rolls 2, 4, 5, 7, and 10 for 3 successes. The Marauder, already braced for battle, brings his notched axe up to meet her blow. He defends using defense 4 and weapon skill 3, giving him 3 dice. He rolls 3, 4, and 9 for 2 successes. Since Soretta scores at least one more success than the Marauder, her attack hits. While attacking at range is relatively safe, failing to attack an enemy in close range leaves you open to counter attacks. If you aren't staggered already, you suffer the staggered condition. If you're already staggered, no additional penalties apply. Successful attacks inflict damage. Each weapon has its own damage value, sometimes derived from the attacker's strength. This base damage is increased by how many more successes the attacker scored than the defender on their attack test, or the total number of successes for unopposed attacks. Damage is compared to the defender's resilience. Resilience is equal to the target's toughness plus any bonuses they gain from armor, shields, or other abilities. So here's a damage example. Soretta's player now calculates the result of her successful attack. Her Warhammer deals damage equal to her strength, which is 4. Because her attack test beat the Marauder's defense test by 1 success, the total damage is 5. The Chaos Marauder has toughness 4 and is wearing light armor that provides +1 resilience, bringing his total resilience to 5. Since Soretta's damage equals but does not exceed the Marauder's resilience, the blow does not deal a wound. However, it still inflicts the staggered condition. Had the damage been just 1 point higher, it would have caused a wound instead. And since the Marauder is a minion, a single wound would have been enough to take him out of the fight. As it stands, he's staggered, leaving him more vulnerable to Soretta's next swing. So the stagger condition is if you are battered, bruised, or otherwise reeling from an enemy attack. And the effect is no effect by itself, but if you are staggered again, you must choose to give ground into an adjacent zone once per round, suffer the prone condition, or suffer a wound. And in order to remove it, you take a recover action when you suffer a wound. Giving ground puts space between you and your attacker before they can press the advantage. So you move away from your attacker into an adjacent zone of your choice. But you may only give ground once per round. And if you give ground into a zone containing an enemy, you gain the broken condition. And broken basically means your courage has failed and all you can think of is retreating to a place of safety. And the effect is you must spend your turn moving to a zone without an enemy as fast as possible, undertaking maneuvers if necessary. Once you're in a zone without an enemy, you may attempt to recover. And in order to remove it, you must make a willpower test to find your courage or another character's leadership test to restore your discipline. Whilst giving ground, you cannot move through enemies, obstacles, or areas you treat as difficult terrain. And you cannot give ground if you are prone or unable to leave your zone. If these restrictions make giving ground impossible, you cannot choose to give ground and must fall prone or suffer a wound instead. Giving ground is a useful way to avoid injury, so fighters always have an escape plan. So try to avoid getting surrounded in combat. Alternatively, get behind your enemies so they aren't able to escape you. So prone is you're knocked flat, lying down or kneeling on the floor. The effect is that melee attacks against you gain the benefit of higher ground, adding +1d. Shooting attacks against you take -1d. And if you're knocked prone whilst mounted on a steed or vehicle, you are dismounted. You cannot move out of your zone whilst prone. And in order to remove it, you can take a recover action or sacrifice your free move for the turn. Prone characters cannot fall prone again or give ground. If you're staggered again while staggered and prone, you suffer a wound. Dropping prone is not a terrible response to ranged fire, but does leave you very vulnerable to melee attacks. Sometimes the best move is not to fight. So in order to retreat, all players must agree at the start of the round or during their side's turn. One character must spend fate to act as rearguard. If no fate remains, the game master decides the price: a wound, lost gear, or a lucky break for the enemy. Players all then roll athletics tests to escape. Retreat can save the party, but your NPC's cargo and unfinished goals, those are left behind. When retreat goes wrong, you roll on a table of complications. Low results usually lead to social fallout or narrative setbacks, while higher results escalate to material losses and immediate danger. When your character suffers a wound, it's not just a hit point ticking down. It's a moment of real danger, and it has mechanical, narrative, and sometimes permanent consequences. When a wound is inflicted, you roll on the wounds table. You roll 1d10, plus 1 extra die for each untreated wound you already have. You add the results together and consult the table. This roll determines just how bad things get, from a broken rib to a crushed limb. Wounds trigger a rush of adrenaline through your body, masking your pain and surging you forwards. When a staggered character suffers a wound, they immediately remove the staggered condition. Treating a wound doesn't heal it, but it stops it from getting worse. A treated wound no longer adds +1d to future wound rolls, and any penalties that last until treated are now removed. To treat a wound in battle, take the recover action and make a recall test. If you have anatomy lore, you succeed automatically. You can only treat a wound if you have the right gear: bandages, sutures, splints, or a physician's kit. Otherwise, you'll need to improvise with survival or awareness, which the game master might make harder if you're treating yourself. Once the threat is past, the fight's over, or you're out of danger, you automatically recover and treat all your wounds. If you suffer wounds outside of battle, you can treat them as soon as you've escaped the hazard or threat that inflicted the injury. Treating a wound helps, but only time heals it. Each wound has a healing threshold. Catch your breath. The least serious wounds cease to be of concern once the immediate danger has passed. This happens automatically at the end of a battle or dangerous encounter, assuming the characters aren't thrust straight into another hazardous situation. A night's rest. Moderate wounds require you to take it easy and enjoy an early night. You'll feel better in the morning. Rest and recovery. The deadliest wounds cannot just be walked off. They require the character to hang up their boots and devote themselves entirely to physical rehabilitation. This is usually only possible during downtime when the character undertakes the rest and recovery endeavor. If a wound requires surgery, you cannot even begin your recovery until after that procedure. Even when healed, a wound might leave scars, disfigurements, or psychological trauma. The penalties go away, but the memory may linger. If time is limited, say you're meeting a noble in 3 hours, your game master may allow an endurance test to push through early healing. Spells and potions that accelerate healing are exceptionally rare and highly sought after. Some wounds can't be walked off. They need surgery. And surgery in the old world is rough. It's usually done during downtime by an NPC. A character with the anatomy lore may attempt the surgery themselves. To do this safely requires a theater to operate in, specialist medical tools, time to work, and crutches and prosthesis to support the patient's recovery. It also requires a successful dexterity test, with failed tests carrying the risk of permanent disfigurement or death. Even success comes at a cost. The character may be permanently altered. Warhammer is a world where veterans wear peg legs, eye patches, and hook hands with pride. And just when you thought you were safe, there's infection. At the end of any day in which a character suffered wounds, even if those wounds were treated, they must make an endurance test. If you score fewer successes than the number of wounds taken that day, you gain a festering wound. Festering wounds count as untreated wounds, applying +1d when rolling on the wounds table as normal. They cannot be treated and can only be healed through rest and recovery downtime. Fortunately, someone with anatomy lore can try to prevent infection. Before the endurance test, they may make a recall test, and for each success, they may choose one character, including themselves, to automatically pass their endurance test and avoid infection. Let's talk about conditions, effects that represent the toll of injury, fear, exhaustion, or distraction. You can only have one instance of each condition at a time. Some conditions trigger effects if you get them again. If a talent or other effect allows you to choose between several conditions, you cannot choose one you already have. Each condition suggests a way to remove it, and certain abilities provide other options for removing them. However, if a condition is applied by an ongoing effect, a wound, an illness, extreme weather, you cannot remove it until the underlying cause is addressed, by healing the wound or finding shelter. If removing a condition requires a test, this must be done as part of the recover action. Some conditions are removed automatically when you take that action, but you may only test to remove one condition or treat one wound when you recover. Ablaze. You're literally on fire. The effect is you test endurance each turn or suffer a fire hazard. It's usually rating 2. And to remove it, you must make an athletics test to stop, drop, and roll or douse yourself with water. Blinded. You can't see either from injury or darkness. The effect is all visual tests are grim and some automatically fail. And remove it, you have to make an awareness test or address the cause. Broken. Your courage fails, all you want to do is run. The effect is you must move away from enemies as fast as possible. And to remove, you have to make a willpower test or an ally's leadership test. Burdened. Too much weight or restricted movement. The effect is that you can't use the maneuver action. And in order to remove it, you can make a brawn test or lighten your load. Critically injured. You're on the verge of death. The effect is endurance test each turn, and if you fail and become defenseless, if you fail again, you die. And to remove it, you make a recall test to treat your wound. Deafened, you can't hear, either due to noise or injury. The effect is you can't use help, can't hear speech, fail tests that rely on sound, and to remove it, you make an awareness test or address the cause. Defenseless, you're completely helpless. The effect is you can't act, move, or oppose tests. Any hit causes a wound. And to remove it, it's variable, often requires another character's help. Distracted, your focus is broken. Rage, fear, shame, or desire take over. The effect is -1d on all tests not related to the distraction. In order to remove it, you have to make a willpower test or remove the source of the distraction. Drained, you're exhausted, sick, or magically depleted. Effect, you can't gain bonus dice. Can't have glorious tests unless you spend fate. And to remove it, you must make an endurance test or significant rest. Prone, you're on the ground, either voluntarily or not. The effect is that melee attacks against you gain +1d. Ranged attacks suffer -1d. You can't move zones. And to remove it, use a recover action or give up your free move. Staggered, you've been rocked but not quite dropped. The effect is that no effect at first, but if you're staggered again, you must choose. Give ground, go prone, or suffer a wound. In order to remove it, you use the recover action or you suffer a wound. So now let's walk through a sample combat encounter. This is going to be a sewer ambush featuring Elswith, the priest of Sigmar, and Richter, a soldier, versus 2 chaos cultists. So the setup is that in our first zone we have the priest and cultist Darrow, who has a ranged crossbow. And then we have Richter, the soldier, and cultist Naya. Naya is armed with a dagger. The group has tracked the cultist into the sewers beneath Talagod. Elswith brandishes her Warhammer. This is damage strength, +1d against staggered enemies, and her holy book. Richter draws his sword, damage strength +1d to defense when not staggered. Round 1. The cultists ambush the intruders, which means they act first. And since they were ambushed, they may not oppose attacks. Cultist Nia charges Richter, melee 3 plus weapon skill 3 equals 3 dice, +1d for charging. He rolls a 2, a 2, a 6, and a 9. That's 2 successes. Richter is hit and cannot defend because of the ambush, so Nia's dagger does strength 3, -1, +2 damage for the 2 successes, for a total of 4 damage. Richter has toughness 3 and +1 resilience for wearing light armor. So the damage isn't enough to cause a wound, but because the attacker's damage is equal to or lower than the target's resilience, Richter is now staggered. Cultist Darrow fires his crossbow from cover at Elswith, shooting 3 plus ballistic skill 2, that's 2 dice, and rolls a 2 and a 7, 1 success. Elswith cannot oppose this test because of the ambush. Darrow does damage 4 with the crossbow, +1 for the unopposed success, and +1 because Elswith is wearing light armor, for a total of 6 damage. Elswith has toughness 3 and +1 resilience for the light armor for a total of 4. So Elswith takes a wound. We roll 1d10 on the wound table and get 6, which is a stomach blow. You splutter and gasp as the wind is knocked out of you. You are drained until the end of your next turn, and it's a catch your breath. This means if she is not further wounded, the effect of this wound will dissipate when combat ends. And drained is your concentration and fighting strength is compromised by sickness or exhaustion, and the effect is you cannot gain bonus dice on tests. No tests you make are glorious unless you spent fate to make them so. Dice penalties and the grim effect still apply as normal. Now it is the hero's turn. Richter strikes back. Now reeling, Richter lifts his blade and counterattacks. Melee 5 plus weapon skill 4, that's 4d. He rolls 2, 5, 3, and 4, that's 4 successes. Cultist Naya attempts to defend against the attack by leaping out of the way. Her agility is 3 and her athletics is 3, so she rolls 3 dice, 9, 8, and 1, 1 success. Richter has 3 more successes, so his sword hits. His sword does damage, strength 4 plus 3, because he had 3 more successes than the cultist, for a total of 7 damage. Cultist Naya's resilience equals 3, so they are wounded, and because cultist Naya is a minion, she is immediately killed. Elswith attacks. She moves toward cultist Darrow. Her weapon skill is 3 and her melee is 3, so she rolls 3 dice. She rolls a 3, an 8, and a 9, 1 success. Cultist Darrow ducks down further, trying to keep out of the way of the Warhammer. His athletics is 3 and his agility is 3, so he rolls 3 dice, and he rolls a 1, 2, and an 8, 2 successes. He ducks out of the way, and Elswith's attack misses. Because her attack failed, she gains the staggered condition. Round 2. Cultist Darrow ducks down and reloads his crossbow. This is an exacting dexterity test. He needs 2 successes to reload it. Darrow has an initiative of 3 and a dexterity of 2, so he rolls 3 dice. He rolls 9, 2, and 2. That's 2 successes, so now his crossbow is reloaded, ready to fire next round. Richter advances. Richter's melee is 5, weapon skill 4. He rolls 4 dice and rolls 8, 7, 5, and 9, 1 success. He decides to spend a fate point to make the test glorious, so he re-rolls the 3 failed rolls and gets 7, 1, 1. 2 more successes for a total of 3. Cultist Darrow attempts to duck further behind cover. His athletics is 3 and his agility is 3, so he rolls 3 dice, 4, 1, 6, that's 1 success. Richter's sword does 4 plus 2 for the difference in success, so 6 damage. Cultist Darrow's resilience, 3, so they are wounded, and because Cultist Darrow is a minion, he is immediately killed. So that's your crash course on combat zones and range in Warhammer, the Old World roleplay. Combat is cinematic and tactical, but still flexible enough to support narrative flow and dramatic moments. In our next video, we'll be digging into magic. If you're enjoying this series, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss the next chapter in the Rules series. And as always, thanks for watching. See you next time.